This is TWiT.
So let's talk about this online safety bill. It is now the law in the United Kingdom. People were complaining. A lot of companies, WhatsApp, Signal, both said we're leaving the UK if this passes. They decided to stay after the regulators said, well, don't worry about encryption. We're not going to, you don't have to worry about that. But they didn't actually write that into the law. So that remains still a question mark. They're billing it as they want to make the UK the safest place in the world to be online, which is a terrible slogan. I'd strongly recommend you do not make bumper stickers. It became law. The royal assent. King Chaz said, it's okay with me. And so October 26th, it became law. They've been pushing this forever. Yeah. It addresses underage access to online pornography. Did they get the age requirements in? Because that was very controversial. For a while, there was the thought that you'd have to go down to a pub and say, here's my driver's license, governor. I want to see some porno. Is that fixed?
Well, there is a technology. There's a company in the UK called Yoti. It's been around for a while. And they use, I guess you'd call it biometrics to determine an age. Now, that brings up other privacy issues as well. They, of course, swear that they don't keep the data. They don't identify who you are. They only estimate your age. But that is something that the UK government is pushing, the use of the age assurance technology. But you bring up a really good point, Leo, because one of the biggest concerns about all of these bills that require age limits is what impact does it have on adults who want to privately anonymously access legal content that may be inappropriate for children. And it goes back to...
I can't speak for the UK, but I know that many states in the United States where these laws are now in effect, they don't care. They want pornography to end, period. They want it to be illegal. So it's just a wedge, basically.
Yeah, I mean, and in the U.S., I mean, there's a bit of a red-blue divide in the sense that the two states that have passed somewhat similar legislation are Arkansas and Utah, which, are Republican states. That doesn't mean the Democrats want to feed pornography to children by any stretch of the imagination, but Republicans are slightly more. But in the UK, it's really there's been a lot of pressure there. First of all, you've got the tabloids that really push any issues that any bad things that come up become major tabloid stories. But this, one of the things it does that I like is really puts pressure on companies to remove CSAM, child sexual abuse material, otherwise known as child pornography. That isn't the name we use anymore, but it's how people understand it. Really promoting that, making them responsible for doing that. Enforcing age limits and age verification measures, not necessarily the going to the pub for the ID, but some way of doing that. Providing parents and children, I'm reading now from the UK.
By the way, that's part of the problem is this hand waving, providing some way to do that. In other words, avoiding the problem of how do you do age ID effectively without invading people's privacy.
It's really hard. I was on a commission 20 years ago looking into it. At the time, we couldn't come up with anything. But there are some technologies and just also making reporting easier and clearer. And one of the things that I really feel very strongly about is when you report, whether you're a child or an adult, when you report, there needs to be some follow-up. You can't just report into the void. You have to get, they have to actually do something with that report. And that's one of the things that the UK is going to be insisting on. Otherwise, some very hefty fines. And believe me, the social media companies will continue to do business in the UK. And it wouldn't surprise me if certain aspects of this law wind up jumping over the pond and coming to a country near us.
So it sounds like you're on the balance in favor of these requirements.
I understand why it's being pushed.
We should say nobody in their right mind is in favor of CSAM.
Right.
And if you oppose these laws, sometimes you're painted as somebody who's advocating child pornography, and that's not the case.
Exactly. No. You can be opposed to these laws for a lot of reasons and still love children and want to protect children. I don't think I think it's unfair to paint anybody who's opposed to these laws as being soft on protecting children. And they are problematic. And look, it's hard. I mean, there's no question about the fact that even think of bars. You go into a bar today. why should you have to show your ID? Maybe you want to have a drink and not identify yourself. So there are,
that's a good point.
Even in traditional methods that we've had in place for decades.
No, I still have to show an ID often, even though I'm obviously over 21.
Yeah, some places require it.
Actually, the California DMV and some other states now has an app that I can do age verification without revealing anything else on my driver's license, like, say, my home address. And I think that's a good thing, right? There's actually on the DMV.
So it just shows you're over 21, or what is it?
It says, here it says share my age. So this is the California. California, unlike some other states, is not allowing Apple to do it in the wallet. They have their own, not such a great app. Okay, and I can verify using TrueAge. I guess I can show a QR code. So if the bouncer has the right thing, I could show the QR code. But if he doesn't, I've got this little ID that actually shows my my birth date without my driver's license or anything else. That's
Great.
good, right?
Yeah, because a lot of this has to do with privacy. I mean, the privacy folks are the ones that make the strongest objections to these kinds of laws, including, as you pointed out, the whole encryption issue. And I'm glad they're pushing back. I'm glad there's been pushback, and they seem to be backing away.
Well, that's part of the problem with CSAM identification is if you're using an encrypted platform like Apple's Messages or Signal or WhatsApp, you can send CSAM material without being detected because it's encrypted. And that's what's unclear about this is initially this bill said, no, well, these companies have to upon request, provide clear text of versions of what's going on, which breaks encryption.
And by the way, encryption protects children as well as adults. I'm actually on a Internet Society task force where we're looking into the whole issue of encryption. And part of the issue is children have a right to be protected, not only in terms of protecting their privacy, but also their security. What if there's a database that contains information about a child, let's say medical records? That must be encrypted to protect the child. So it's a two-way street, even on the aspect of safety.
How are we still doing this? I feel like I'm here with my slightly elders in the technology world. And even I've gone through so many cycles of encryption's bad. We need to get around it. Technologists need to make better technology to make it work. And every time they go, we can't do that. It's math. And then it comes up again 9 months later.
Because they're never going to give up.
Yeah.
That's the answer. That law enforcement in every country of the world, and perhaps I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. They're doing this with the best intentions of stopping terrorism and child exploitation and trafficking and a variety of ills. They believe that they should have the right to see every form of electronic communication, and that will enable them to do this. Now, this is, Alex, this goes back to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights in the United States, where the founders said, okay, yes, with perfect information, you can have perfect law enforcement, but we believe that the cost of perfect information is too high, that people should have a right to be secure from, for instance, illegal search and seizure. And I think that we answered that question. We answered that question in the 18th century. But it still comes up, and it's not that they don't understand the math. I'm going to ascribe good motivations that they really truly want to end crime. But so did Tom Cruise in Minority Report. It's not you can't have perfect information. Sorry.
I would even go one step further and say, even if you had perfect information, you couldn't have no crime, because any government that had that much information would become inherently corrupt.
Yes,
but that's
they would become the criminals.
Political acts.
Yes. They would be the criminals.
Yeah. I mean,
I was on the board of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children for 20 years, and this debate would come up constantly. And I was in a minority among my colleagues on the board, and they all meant well. They were all great people. You all know about John Walsh. He was one of my fellow board members. I mean, upstanding folks. But you're right. I mean, the law enforcement temptation is to want to get as much information as possible, and there needs to be pushback. That doesn't mean that they don't have a right to push in their direction, but we need an ACLU, we need an EFF, we need people saying, wait a minute, what about protecting our civil liberties? And that's really important. And again, I run an internet safety organization, but I still feel very strongly that we can protect children for the most part and still have our liberties. We're not going to get it right 100% of the time, but we never have.
I guess what you're asking, Alex, is why don't they understand this, that math is math and you can't have any break encryption without breaking it for all of us? I don't know why they don't understand that.
Because that gets tedious. I understand the desire to protect children. Everyone's in favor of it.
Yeah.
I also get the desire for privacy. Most people are in favor of that. But encryption is not, you can't have 80% of it, if that makes sense.
Right.
By my understanding, and this is what I hear from every single person in the cybersecurity and just security world. And here we are again, with WhatsApp threatening to pull out of the UK because they're being told that they can't encrypt. Now, clearly, there's some work to make this function, but it's 2023, we're still doing this. Maybe this is just heat death of the universe, taxes, and encryption debates.
I mean, honestly, I really wonder why WhatsApp and Signal dropped their objection to this, because the bill doesn't actually protect encryption. It doesn't. They did not remove that clause that says you'd have to provide clear text. They kind of said, "Well, we don't worry, we're not gonna make you do that." And I think Signal and WhatsApp and the others just didn't want to. They couldn't face it, and they said, "Okay, fine."
Remember, WhatsApp's owned by Meta. I mean, it would have been disastrous for them to have continued.
They don't want to leave the market. This is the timeline. Get ready for this, because Ofcom, the British regulator, now has to come up with rules. And get this timeline. Yeah, it stretches into 2026, I might add.
I love a good Gantt chart.
Yeah. So the act passes. That's up at the top here. Then in a few months, they're going to do a consultation on guidance, and then it won't be until the end of next year that they'll finalize the codes, and then Parliament has to approve it. Blah blah. But I think what they've done here, very cleverly, is they got it passed, and then they convinced people it's going to take a long time before we implement this, but it will happen, I think, and I think that's problematic. I really do.
Full employment for solicitors, though.
Oh God,
there's a lot of legal battles going on.
And notice there are in each of these phases, parliamentary approval is required. So there is an opportunity to fight it in Parliament. I think the same thing's going to happen in the U.S. I mean, the fact that these AGs, 42 AGs, are suing Meta because it's addictive to kids, just shows us that there's a political will to come down on big tech, regardless of the sense.
But there's not a political will to be non-hypocrites about this. If you want to dig into a little bit more in the UK scene here, just Google Tories WhatsApp message deletion.
Right. Oh, believe me, these members of Congress want to use encryption. These parliamentarians, they're not talking about for them. It's for you.
Right. And so
good for you,
that's why
not us.
Going back to the good intent portion of this, I think it's very generous of us and fullness of spirit to ascribe good intent to all law enforcement demands for more information and so forth. But I don't trust them.
I think law enforcement.
I'll take the more negative side of that.
I will give law enforcement the benefit of the doubt, say they have good intent because they're trying to do their job, which is protect us. But I don't trust politicians. Politicians clearly and always have malintent. Their only intent is to get elected. So they'll say whatever they have to say.
Did you hear about the recent case when the police pulled over the wrong person, and then as they were arresting him, realized he wasn't the right person, and then made up crimes to nail him?
Yeah, you're right. I know. Yeah.
And we only found out because of body cameras. Yeah. So my point is, these people, these are the people who are going to want to snoop through your messages. These people.
Yep.
No, but you make a good point about, politicians, they want their privacy. Businesses want their privacy and security. So I think that's actually where the real power of the pro-encryption movement is with businesses that basically require it. They have to have it.
Yeah. You can't have online banking without encryption.
That's right.
Right. Yeah. So it's, I mean, like if we lost encryption, the internet stops working and we can't do anything. And that's the scale of what we're talking about here. So it has to be in bad faith that they keep trying this, because they must have read at least one thing once about how this debate's gone.
They don't believe it. I just think
unless they're just massively stupid.
well.
Sorry. I'm going to put on my happy face again.
Well,
there you go. I love it. It's great stuff. Good work, everybody.
Hey there, Scott Wilkinson here. In case you hadn't heard, Home Theater Geeks is back. Each week, I bring you the latest audio-video news, tips and tricks to get the most out of your AV system, product reviews, and more. You can enjoy Home Theater Geeks only if you're a member of Club TWiT, which costs $7 a month, or you can subscribe to Home Theater Geeks by itself for only $2.99 a month. I hope you'll join me for a weekly dose of home theater geekitude.